Greetings, Kindred. I am Voivode Maquette, and welcome back to another episode of My World of Darkness. This is the Thicker Than Water recap, where we're going to be going over all the ins and outs. You guys know this by now. We're on the second season. If you don't, go back and watch the other ones. It's Friday, April 15th, and I am here to talk to you about last Friday, which, I don't know, I'm bad at just sitting down and doing these damn recaps, even though I love doing them. Because, oh my god, so much fun stuff happens at game. First off, I want to let you guys know that unfortunately this last Friday, Serendipity, the player of God, I gotta remember these new names. The player of L was not available for play. She was off doing her real job, so unfortunately we did not have L. But it was a very interesting night. First off, to start with, all the players arrived at school, at Kretius's finishing school, and when they arrived, what they noticed was that there was a note on the door that had a room number for a basement, for one of the basement rooms. They make their way down there and they find a whole bunch of stuff in the hallway, stacked desks and things like that. Basically old school storage. And when they get down to the room that they're supposed to be at, they find a room that's dark with one light above a table with enough chairs for all of them. And they attended class, as they do. And we covered a lot of things, such as how to run a city with influences and stuff like that. It's a lot of stuff that makes the game itself very interesting, but I really don't see how handling that in the recap is that big, because it's literally them sitting around a desk talking, and Tinia becoming more and more stressed out the entire time because she realizes that she has next to no real influence in Portland and she's expected to run this. And at this point, Kretius is just kind of drilling in, how are you going to handle a hunter situation? How are you going to handle a masquerade breach? What happens when one of your kindred in the city decides that they're going to start embracing en masse, which has happened in the city? What happens when you're attacked by the Sabbat? What happens when rival anarch gangs show up and start fighting over territory and stuff like that? And it's just all stuff that they're like, oh my god, am I ready to do this? Which is all fun, but it's, like I said, I don't think it makes very good recap material. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. We do record all of our sessions so I can listen into them and stuff like that, and it's kind of grainy and hard to hear, and some of our players' voices don't really catch very well because we're recording off a single laptop on the desk. But I mean, if you guys are interested, I can, by all means, I can put those up too if you want. Just ask and thou shalt receive. But yeah, we go over all the classic stuff of how to run a city this past week. When everything was done, it was actually kind of interesting because a good amount of the kindred in the class decided nightclub time. They're going to go out and have some fun. And William Smiles is the one who decided that they were going to go to a nightclub that he knew in the city, and not one of the standard Succubus Club and Red Number 5 and stuff like that in the city. So they hop into a car that William is driving and they start heading out. Two of the kindred, however, decide that they're not going to do that. One being Justin Murphy, who spends the rest of the night just reading through the copy of the Book of Nod that Kretius has, that he says is complete garbage. It's a complete work of kindred fiction, that there's so many typos and misnaming and things like that stuff that historically he knows is false, that's in that book, that if anybody wants to read it, they can, but it is purely a work of kindred fiction. Justin, being Sabbat as he is just delving into this book and trying to learn as much as possible. And, taking it as it is. I assume taking it as this elder of the Camarilla is telling them that it's garbage when it's probably actually true and stuff. But basically, I said that the Book of Nod was something that was published and sent out to actual bookstores, and it was a huge masquerade breach that the Camarilla had to cover up a few years ago. So, yeah, that's fun. So that's what Justin does the majority of the night. Then we have Gabriel, who goes outside and finds that there's a note on his bike that tells him to call this phone number at the bottom of the thing, which he does. And the first thing that that the person does when they answer the phone is ask, "Are you Nightbreed?" And after a little bit of coaxing, they're able to get him to admit that he's a K-Knight, that he's a vampire. And and they're like, cool. They say that One-Eye K, which is some mysterious gang leader that's in Riverside, where Gabriel has been doing most of his stuff because it's neglected by the Camarilla. That Gabriel's been like piecing together motorcycle and stuff from parts that he's stolen around the area. And this gang called One-Eye K has been keeping an eye on him. They say that their leader, who's called One-Eye K, wants to meet up, but he has to prove his worth before he can meet up with the One-Eye K. And being intrigued, and also wants to know who's lording over him at this point in time, he goes ahead and agrees to do that. So he goes off in a completely opposite direction. Now, our kindred who are going clubbing head out of Chicago and into Gary, where they come across this old clinical testing facility called Phase 1 Comprehensive. This is a building where human testing is done for medications and stuff, but this was years ago. They've been kicked out of Gary since Gary has fallen into the disrepair that it is. Gary, Indiana, being a horrible, horrible place. I think I might go ahead and put a virtual tour of Gary, Indiana in the description of this video just for fun, because it's crazy, and it really is the birthplace of Vampire the Masquerade. You guys should definitely check out the Vampire the World of Darkness documentary they did a few years ago. God, I got to do a reaction to that. I actually filmed one a long time ago, and it just never got taken care of, never got put up. But anyway, with them heading into Gary, they go to this place, and I just describe the dirtiest place that I possibly can. Just everything on the floor, the posters all over the walls and stuff like that. And I bring in Jeanette. Jeanette Vorman, who is she treats William as if he's a pet. And it was a very nice scene. There's really not much to report up on this one. She made Annette feel rather uncomfortable, but she's a Malkavian. That's what they do. She called Jeanette a cricket, and then corrected herself and said, "No, you're more like a caterpillar. You're changing. You're in your chrysalis." And it's just, everybody felt uncomfortable with this place. And as William takes the stage and ends up performing a song on stage, we went ahead and switched back over to the real event for tonight, which was Gabriel's interaction with the One-Eye K. Now, they send him a photo of a girl and a name, Michelle, and location. They say that she's at this motel not too far from Riverside, near Garoop territory. Places where the other gangrel have actually said to stay away from. And he rides his motorcycle over there, and he sees the lowlives of the city that are happening around here. There's a few guys sitting in a car drinking and listening to loud music. There's a guy standing in front of a door. And they said straight out that Michelle was in room 15 of this motel, and that's where all the action seems to be happening, where there seems to be guards appointed. And Gabriel gets off his motorcycle, and walks into the office and finds one of the most obstinate people running the front counter, who, when he asks about the girl who's missing and shows the picture, he doesn't even look at the picture. He's just like, I don't know her. Are you a cop? It goes into this whole thing until finally Gabriel threatens him and gets him to confirm the fact that she's in that room. But the guy is so terrified about what the others might do to him if he says something, that he's almost willing to take the abuse that Gabriel is threatening on him. He tries bribing him, he tries everything. It just does not work until finally he calls on the power of his vampiric abilities and actually does just intimidate the hell out of this guy. When he finds out that Michelle literally is in room 15 of this place, he walks over there, and he's not shy about this at all. He tells the guy to open the door, and then the other guys in the car get up, come up behind him, and it just goes bad at this point in time, because he physically assaults the guy at the door and then feels a gun at his back, and then is able to call upon his vampiric speed to get out of the way just as the gun goes off, and the guy who is behind him blows the guard away. And as all that's happening, he turns around to the other guy who is in the car. I'm sorry, I don't have names for these people. They're just literally guards A, B, and C. He tells guard C to get in the car and leave, and intimidates him to get in the car, and he just goes and drives off. And gets the other guy who shot to knock on the door to let them in. But by that time, they've heard the gunshot go off. Everything's going crazy. And when the door opens just a little bit, Gabriel just forces the door open and is confronted by two more people. One of which he grabs by the head and slams down backwards, and he bashes his head up against a dresser, killing him instantly, snapping his neck. The other guy, he grabs the gun out of his hand and cold cocks him and splits his face open, but he's unconscious on the floor. As he's getting in and taking on these guys, he sees a girl run into the bathroom and slam the door, screaming at the top of her lungs. He stacks them off to the side on the bed, goes over and says, "Let me in." And then we get, oh my god, it's like almost a whole Three Little Pigs situation where they're just screaming at the top of her lungs to leave her alone. And as he's trying to negotiate with her, I'm running fumbling tests in the background. I'm rolling her dice pool, which was pathetic, like 2 dice, because of the panic, because of how nervous she is, because of how beaten down emotionally she is by this whole situation. And she's failing repeatedly. And then as he finally just breaks the door down, he sees that she's trying to get the bathroom window that's over the shower open far enough for her to be able to get in. And when she notices him coming in, she reaches into her purse and just pulls out wads of money and is handing up, just leave me alone, just begging. Tears streaming down her face. And as she eventually tries to run, he grabs a hold of her, ties her hands up with the wire ripped off the back of the TV, throws her on the back of the motorcycle, and heads out. Now, but was she kidnapped first? Is really the thought. Or was there something else going on? So Gabriel gets her to this meetup spot, which is this old cannery in Riverside. And when he gets there, there's this whole group of gang members and various cars, and nice stuff though. Nice cars, top of the line clothes. Now they're still wearing like jeans and jerseys and stuff like that, but everything's like brand name, really high quality stuff. And he gives them the girl. He meets up with the guy who he's been talking to on the phone and exchanging texts with, which is a guy named T-Bone. And he gives her the girl, who looks her over and goes, all right, this looks good. And then just tosses her to the next guy, who tells him to throw her in the car and get her back on the street as soon as possible. This girl was trying to escape from them. Gabriel wasn't rescuing her from kidnappers. He was kidnapping her from rescuers. And part of him with the murders that he committed while trying to do this and kidnapping the girl, he actually did take, even though he's on Path of Night, he did take some stains from enacting this. And we'll see exactly where that goes. But he's then led into the cannery where he meets up with One-Eye K, which he quickly finds out is a creature known as the One-Eyed King. He introduces himself as Olaf, the One-Eyed King. And he doesn't know if this is some... I mean, just by looking at him, this is a Nosferatu. It just looks that bad. He's covered in burns. His skin is shriveled. His hair comes out sporadically in patches. He looks feeble and thin and broken, and this horrible excuse for a humanoid shape who's sitting on this destroyed, beaten down dumpster which has been shaped into a throne. And when he speaks with this air of regal elegance. And when he sees them coming into the room, he tells T-Bone, "Terrence, please leave us. We have something to discuss." And he apologizes to Gabriel for his children's behavior, and that they put him through this to test to see if he was worthy to have a meeting with the One-Eyed King. And he gives Gabriel an option. That he has now done a job for us. That he will allow Gabriel feeding rights within Riverside. That he will help him with anything that he needs. That he can haven here if he wishes. And that he and his coterie may work for the One-Eyed King if he trades information of what is going on within the Camarilla courts, because he is in no position to be able to handle such things himself. And that he would prefer if Prince Jackson was unaware of his practices as the One-Eyed King within that territory. And Gabriel agrees, because not only is he offering haven and feeding rights, he's also offering payment if need be. That he could also be one of the One-Eyed King's lieutenants. And at this point in time, it's, I think, more a curiosity thing. Obviously, I can't go inside of Gwen's mind, the player of Gabriel, to figure out exactly what's going on in his head. But the idea of we are going to learn more before we take decisive action on this is something that I'm very glad that Gwen as a player has, because he probably could just end this plot line like right off the bat so fast. And I don't know, I'm enjoying the whole One-Eyed King thing. And he'll pay him too in currency of the land, as he says, or in gold, where he has a treasure box full of like gold watches and things like that have been taken from victims. So that's where we are right now. We've got the coterie, the vampire coterie. The majority of them have decided to crash at the asylum because Jeanette insists that William stay. Therefore, the rest of the coterie has to stay too in some skanky room with a stained mattress on the floor over day. Like I'd be worried if sunlight was going to come through the roof of this place. But it seems to be in well order. And the next game, tonight's game, April 15th, as I said, is going to be set the next night afterwards, because I'm now putting them in a story arc. And for those of you who have not caught on to what I like to do, a lot of the times I'll let them play real time, a week at a time, let them have their downtime actions and stuff. But every once in a while I'll stop and I will do a story arc where they'll play a night at a time for several weeks. And then we'll do a time jump to catch up to regular time. In which case I usually give them 1 XP a night, and then I just give them an XP dump to make up for the fact that they're going to be sending in downtime actions and stuff like that. But that is where we are. The intrigue of the One-Eyed King working with Gabriel, and hopefully maybe even the rest of the coterie with everything that's going on. At first, I had an idea that this plot line with Michelle, the girl that Gabriel rescued, was to be something the entire coterie was going to be involved in. But Gabriel ended up handling it on his own while the other ones were having fun. And now that I stop and think about it, I don't think that would have gone as cleanly as it had if Tinia had been there. She definitely does have a conviction of making sure that women in distress are being rescued, and this would have been the complete opposite of that. And there's a good chance that she would have ended up not only rescuing Michelle because of misunderstandings of what was going on, such as the way Gabriel did, but also probably frenzying on the One-Eyed King's children. You know, his gang that he uses. So that might not have been a good idea. They might have ended up making enemies with the One-Eyed King very, very quickly. So I know this is short, but due to the fact that we're doing like half the game in the classroom and half the game doing like little vignette stories to try to flesh out what's going on in Chicago, to get the Kindred attracted to Chicago, to get them invested in Chicago so that the sacrifice storyline makes sense to them in a little while. I don't know if the recaps are going to be that long, which might actually be a good thing. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. I am Voivode Maquette, and this has been My World of Darkness, and a look into Thicker Than Water as the Kindred of Portland, Oregon are in Chicago right now. Thank you for spending some time with me. Good evening.